Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima, and I'm here checking out ActRaiser Renaissance. I've wanted to play this for a long time. It's been on the list of retro games I need to get around to for a while, but that list is also a mile plus long. And when Square Enix announced that, hey, we're remastering this, remaking this, however you want to put it, it's going to be available today, and it's going to be on PS4, PC, and Switch. My first thought was, damn it, almost had a reason to get my Switch out there. But then my second thought was, I'm buying that. And so I did, and here it is on the PC. And before we get into the actual game itself, I might as well tell you about the PC port, which is fine. But there is one weird issue that it has. It's a very simple game when it comes to the settings, because outside of like sound sliders, text speed, the way certain controls work, you can rebind all the controls, including the controller controls, which is nice. Although it does support using mouse and keyboard. The thing is that the graphics settings that it has are windowed, borderless windowed full screen, frame rate cap, and VSync. And the VSync doesn't bloody work. I have no idea what the hell is wrong with this game's VSync, but if you're in a situation where you need the VSync, you'll be having like 3 or 4 tearing horizontal lines across the middle of the screen, and there'll be nothing you can do about it. I had it at the very beginning, and a lot of people in the Steam reviews have had it as well. I don't know how I fixed it, to be honest with you. I just relaunched the game and fiddled with the settings a little, and all of a sudden the problem was gone, the game was running fine, and I was just fine to go for it. So I can't explain to you exactly what the hell I did, but I did it, and outside of that, I've got 4.5 hours in this version of the game, and it's been running fine. Nothing in the way of really noticeable frame rate drops, nothing in the way of just problems, really. The game runs fine. If it wasn't for the VSync, it would actually be a really good port. So with that said, let's get on to the actual game. So I haven't played ActRaiser before, as I said, so I'm coming at this entirely from the position of someone who's new to the game and the series, and of course new to this version that they're charging $40 US for. So, the game doesn't have a story. I mean, it does, but it's very thin on the ground, and it seems more concerned with the day-to-day elements of the villagers and the heroes, more than it is any one overarching plot. The overarching plot being, you're God, you have the help of an angel, use the angel to help build your town, use a guy in a statue to go and kill the evil demon's henchmen, and that's it. That's all you have to do, for the most part, when it comes to the story. But I will give what is there a lot of credit, because you'll be doing a lot of reading conversations between like the heroes and the villagers, and the angel will be popping in to give you advice every now and again. And the writing for all of them, considering the fact that there isn't really a story, is actually really good. They all imbue this sort of old atmosphere, and by old I mean several hundred centuries ago atmosphere. They're all written in a very specific way that not only makes it enjoyable to read, but the little plots and the little intricacies that are going on between all the characters, those are all interesting to read too. And they do a good job with giving everyone a defined character and making it shine through, while also standing to this sort of like old world style of like speech and dialect and what have you. And it all comes together really well. And it's genuinely fun to go through the individual cutscenes. I don't have a problem with any of them. And it's really helped out by the fact that the cutscenes and their art and the art that's attached to it is some of the best art in the entire game, and some of the best art I've seen in a while. Like, I would say that some of the best, like, sprite work in this game could go head-to-head with Vanillaware and come out pretty favorably. Seriously, some of these, like, the two-dimensional big bits of art that you get when you're, like, reading through a cutscene, they look absolutely gorgeous. And the intro movie, which is just a few scenes from the game with a bunch of fancy two-dimensional art going on as well. That also looks gorgeous. The rest of the game, some people have called it complete shit. I don't think it's complete shit. But someone also brought up that this is a lot like the old Castlevania games on Game Boy Advance. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's perfectly right. It's like a halfway between Castlevania Aria of Sorrow and Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. It's all in 2 dimensions, but honestly, the animations are good. The effects are really nice. Like, look at the flame balls on that Manicore. That's a sentence I didn't think I'd be saying when I got up this morning. Look at the flame balls on that Manicore. Look at the way the outlines go. The way just the general, even the background and its parallax. And like, just those clouds, man. Those clouds are absolutely gorgeous. I'm known for being a sucker for a good skybox. And clearly it's showing through right now. The rest of the game does look like it was a 3D game converted to 2D, like the old Crash Bandicoot games. But honestly, it's not that bad. The animation is a bit stilted. Clearly it looks a little bit like a stop motion. But I'm honestly not that offended by it. I genuinely think it looks fine. I don't see a problem with the way that this game looks when you're in the middle of the combat. And then you get to the town management sections, and the town management sections are, well, not the worst, but it's clearly the short end of the stick when it comes to the graphical side of things, because everything is quite small. It's kind of hard to just get any real detail going on with this kind of art style. But it still has the good effects. Everything is nice and clear. You can tell what's what just at a quick glance. And they tend to have some nice detail going on from time to time. Like how the little villagers are all wandering around. Like how when you smite someone's house, they'll come out, they'll hold their hands above their heads and go, "No, I worked for ages on that painting." But yes, it is not the best looking game. It is helped immensely by the fantastic 2-dimensional art when it comes to the cutscenes and what have you, but it's alright. I'm genuinely not that offended by it, and honestly, that's something to be said. For something that everyone else is claiming is bloody ugly, I think this looks fine. Could definitely use some smoother animations in the battles, could definitely use less pixelation. It does feel a bit weird, but it's fine. There's not really a problem with it. When you're actually in the game and going, you won't notice it. It'll be fine, it'll be good, you won't have a problem. What you definitely will notice, though, and what is definitely very, very good, is the soundtrack. Yuzo Koshiro, the original composer for ActRaiser, and I'm pretty sure if I have my names right for my Japanese music composers, the composer for Streets of Rage came back and redid the music for Renaissance, and it's bloody great! It's genuinely great! There is not a single, like, non-banger in this soundtrack. It is genuinely lovely on every single one. My one problem is that I wish they'd looped better, because it's pretty damn obvious when they wind down and then start winding back up for a new loop of the song. But seriously, every single song on this soundtrack so far has been absolutely great. So, there you go. Great soundtrack. Probably going to be contended for best soundtrack of the year. Just, it's genuinely that good. It fits the tone perfectly. It's got some really enjoyable melodies. I'm not going to claim to be much of a music critique-ish thing, but it's still really damn good. It's genuinely so good. And that's all I've got to say about it. Alright, let's get on to the actual gameplay of the game now. So, this video is laid out in a very specific way. It's got a platforming section at the beginning, a platforming section at the end, and in the middle, the town building section, which takes up about 20 minutes. Despite the fact that I've laid it out this way, in my actual footage, the in-between bit lasted about an hour and a half, because the town building is the majority of the time you'll be spending in ActRaiser. And I gotta tell you, man, I wish it was paced just a little bit better. There is a sense of inherent satisfaction to it, so let me explain how it works real quick. You've got a set of spells. You use these spells to clear out the ground. There'll be things like marshes and trees and rocks and things in the way. You clear those out, then give guidance to your people. You'll be building out the roads so that they'll come and build out those roads and they'll build buildings on them, which will give you things like health and magic, which you can use to do more spells, which you can use to build more stuff, yada, yada, yada. Then you'll get resources, which you can use to actively build gates and towers that'll keep the enemy back and take shots at them respectively, of different kinds. And then, when you've done all that, eventually a main story event will pop up. And that main story event will probably be holding back some kind of enemy force. Whether it be just some basic waves, whether it be taking on a very specific tough enemy. And the idea will be just to survive through it. Your temple is your main base of operations, but they'll often add some things on top. Like you need to protect all the fields. You'll need to protect all of your workshops. You'll need to protect a specific character who's gone and wandered off because they're a bloody idiot. And you'll need to fulfill all those objectives. And if you don't, well, they'll just put you back at the start of the encounter and you can try it again. It's no problem. But if you do, you get to move on through the story. And I gotta tell you, man, the way that they've set it out like that just makes it a long wait. Because in between everything, you'll be waiting. When you need to construct buildings, you'll need to wait for your workshops to send out materials. How do I get workshops? Well, you need to clear out some stuff in the fields first. And once you've done all that, you might not have the MP for it. So you'll have to wait until your MP catches back up by some of the buildings they managed to construct. Then you'll guide the way. Then you'll have to wait for them again to come out along the roads and build the buildings that you need so that things can happen a little bit faster. And it does accelerate over time. You do get more resources. You do get the ability to upgrade stuff, add more different kinds of things to go on. But there is a lot of waiting in between. And I just wish there was a way to speed it up. A fast forward button would be absolutely fantastic. And I genuinely don't know why there's not one in here. There is a little bit of danger. Like, there are some monsters that can come down that you need to take out with the Angel's bow and arrow when you're in the building sections. Otherwise, they'll start breaking stuff. But there's like an audible cue whenever that happens, and you can just wander around, look for them, and then just hammer away at the square button, and you'll take them out. It's no big deal. And when you've cleared out all the monster spawners, which are the purpley portal things, they'll start sending out actual hordes at you for the tower defense bits. But you'll still have to be waiting around a bit, because if you want a chance to survive, you want to build out your town as far as possible before you actively take on another horde. Because not only will you need to upgrade all your stuff so that it's got more health and it's better at it, you'll want to have a bunch of stuff in the way to distract the monsters. Whether it be to send them like on a really long road from the south of town in order to give yourself more time to think it through, or just to be able to like upgrade your buildings so that you can wait for more materials to spawn so you can upgrade your buildings so that they'll be better. And even then, having them start all the way down there means if you manage to take them out early, you can just not have to worry about rebuilding your stuff because it got destroyed. You do get things like palisades, which get produced at the same things as your currency for adding upgrades, which will prevent that a little bit, but not enough to entirely rely on it. So a lot of the basic gameplay loop is going to be do something, wait. Do something, wait. Do something, do something, do something, wait. And it is kind of a bummer. There are things you can do in the meantime, but a lot of them end up just being the same thing you were going to be doing anyway, but you just kind of got lucky and got there first. Like, for example, there might be a side quest, which is like build 5 workshops. You don't have direct control over what your dudes build, so you just have to go and draw out the roads and hope that they'll build what you want. And it seems predetermined what they're going to build, so you're not really in massive control over what goes on here. And you just kind of got to hope that they'll do everything that you're needed for before that happens. It also comes with a neat side effect that sometimes this will actually be the case. Like, you'll have done what needed to be done before the side quest ever came up, so you just immediately finish and get the rewards for it. But yeah, either way, there's a lot of waiting, and it's really not helped out by the fact that after a certain point, you'll start getting upgraded buildings, but the only way to actually get them built is to raise the old buildings and wait for them to come out and build the new ones. You can raise a bunch of buildings at a time by using the wider version of a spell, but that also means waiting for more MP, and that also means waiting longer for more dudes to come out to build more stuff. Which is, again, it's just annoying. I feel like a fast forward button would have fixed this and then some, Might have actually made the gameplay more enjoyable just because it went by a little bit quicker. But there you go. And as I said, there are side quests, but it really is just, you might already have this stuff built, you might not, or you might have to go and, like, collect certain things from, like, stuff that, like, for example, collecting fruits from fields, which is one of the side quests you got going on here. So I really do wish there was, like, a fast forward button. That would have just made it, like, well, it wouldn't have made it great, but it would have made it better. It would have made it more digestible. With that said, let's get on to talking about the tower defense stuff, because it looks like we're about to get onto some of the tower defense stuff in the actual gameplay footage itself. So during the tower defense, you're not able to attack with your bow and arrow, so you have to rely entirely on heroes, which have their own unique abilities and stats, and you can order them to defend certain parts of the town. You also have those spells that you were using to clear the ground earlier, or raising people's buildings, because you're a weird god like that. Even the angel thinks that it's a little bit cheeky to do that. Like, at first, the angel's like, oh, you wouldn't destroy the buildings of our faithful servants, would you, O Lord of Light? And then, like, 5 minutes later, she's like, not gonna get tricked again, Astolfo. He says, oh, well, we have these new buildings, but it looks like there's no room to build them. Well, it's possible that someone could raise them. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Hands over lightning bolt. Go all Zeus on their ass. It's funny. But anyway, as I said, heroes. Put them somewhere. Spells. Use them on enemies. Certain enemies will be weak to certain spells. Certain enemies will be strong to them. And it's up to you to decide where to use your spells most effectively. And you do eventually get to summon in more heroes the more places that you save. I've only got 2 here, but I imagine you get more as the game goes on. It might cap you out at something like 4, but that's still enough to be plenty strategic. And then your workshops also drop these palisades, which you can drop to stop them from moving. You also have like food and SP being generated, and food will actually heal up all your towers and your heroes, but will not heal your temple. And you need to keep your temple alive. So if the objectives say, oh, you also need to worry about all your fields or all your workshops, you don't need to. You should really focus on keeping your temple protected, because they're always going to go for your temple, and if your temple goes, that's it, you're done. Meanwhile, you've probably got like 5 or 6 workshops sitting around. You could probably realistically get some defenses going for half of them and be fine. So, it's real time. They come out from different pools around the map. I don't think it's random where they come from, but it'll feel random at the time. And you just got to maneuver your heroes, use your spells, and apply your defenses in such a way that makes it so that all the enemies die. And it's actually pretty engaging once it gets going. Once you've got multiple heroes to worry about, once you've got to worry about the positioning of all your stuff, once you've got to worry about them going for specific resources and where those might be, thankfully you have the ability to freely move towers and gates around, so you don't have to worry about that too much. It makes it enjoyable enough. Honestly, this is the one part of the game I didn't really have a problem with, because it's well balanced. You don't ever feel like it's going to outright slaughter you unless you've done something terminally wrong, like placing all your defenses away from your temple and leaving a completely blank road to the temple from the first spawn. Ha ha, what dumb idiot did that? Where's my dunce cap? But it's still relatively enjoyable. Good positioning, good tactics will win you the day, and it's fun to do. Your heroes need to be taken care of, so you need to like hold them back from the fight until you can heal them. Your towers need to be taken care of, because certain monsters will go straight for them, and if you're not taking care of them, if you're not guarding them using miracles, they will be destroyed, and you will either have to rebuild them or do without them. So it makes it's a good challenge without being over the top. And it's enjoyable, especially when they start seeding in those extra conditions, like this one guy in the second chapter who goes around destroying all of your stuff, and you just need to be trying and sending heroes back and forth, dropping miracles to take care of all the monsters on the other side while that's going. And it creates these situations, and it makes it enjoyable to solve them. It's probably the best part of the game. Just holding them off from this town that you've built and trying not to get your shit kicked in. But it's good fun. I don't have a problem with it. I enjoy it quite a lot. And so, yeah, as a result, I like this bit. And it does help the flow back into the other bits, because early on in the game you start out pretty slow. You can't clear out much in the way of obstacles. You can't destroy much in the way of useless buildings. And you just aren't as good at it. But as you go on, you'll level up, your angel will level up, and you'll have the ability to start doing things more en masse, and things will start really accelerating. And it doesn't really help that they feel the need to tutorialize everything. It would have been nice to have a no tutorials mode or something, let me figure it out for myself. But there you go. It is still pretty enjoyable, even with all the waiting at the end of the day. The whole town building and defending a bit. And there are some nice details that you come to appreciate as well, like how a little boat sails around after you've cleared the lake of the blood poison, or how certain civilians will come running, screaming out of their homes when you strike it down with lightning bolts, like, no, it took me 2 days to build that. Or, to use my brain, when you go back up to the world map to select the region that you're in, it actually shows you the constructed town with all of the stuff that you've built, and all of like the custom positioning that you've done on all your towers and what have you. It's just a really nice touch, and it just gives you that sense of satisfaction to come back to the world map, see this all completely built upon, and be like, I'm destroying the environment. I am doing absolutely awful things to the environment here. And so that brings us on to the last part of the gameplay, which is the platforming and the just general fighty bit of the game. There are parts in the town bits where you get to drop in and do this really quick, like, monster combat course, but it isn't anywhere near as painful as it seems at first, because if you lose, you just get booted back out and you just have to go back in and try it again. Not that hard in the slightest. So you just end up with the majority of the platforming and combat being in these stages. And these stages are about 8 to 10 minutes long or normal, and you'll understand what I mean by that in a little bit. And you have to go through fighting off different kinds of enemies, collecting these gems, which will slowly power you up over the course of a stage, adding more power to your attacks, and then eventually topping off that you get a free life. And you've also got magic that you can use, which costs MP, but you can find refills for your HP and MP at statues hidden throughout the level. There are also gold statues that will give you extra maximum MP for more magic during these bits, but unfortunately not for the town building bits, which would have been nice. And there's 3 of them to find in every stage, so there's it's really that simple. Just some basic going around swinging your sword at things until they die combat. The enemies do all have their own specific patterns, so it's not dreadfully unfair. You do have to make a couple of leaps of faith from time to time, which is kind of annoying. Especially when they lead you right into a path of an enemy that you couldn't possibly know was there. Although that, thankfully, is very rare from the 4 stages of this I've played so far. And you do have a few unique moves to work with as well, which is kind of nice. You have a ground slam. You have the ability to press up and attack to do a rising slash, which you can immediately follow up with another slash in order to get at enemies that are above you without having to worry about going straight into their line of fire, which is just a nice thing to be able to do. You have a backstep, which makes you invulnerable, although it's very, it's not like Dark Souls rolling. It's slower than fat rolling, just to give you an idea of how much time it takes to do a proper backstep. But it does make you invulnerable, which can be useful from time to time. And it makes for a relatively decent set of combat. All the enemies are mostly fun to fight. And you've even got the ability to block by just ducking, which can not only duck some high attacks, but if something hits you, you'll take way less damage from it if you're facing in the right direction. So, along with the enemies all being quite varied and having their own way of going about things, and always coming across a few new enemies whenever you enter a new stage, it's mostly fun and pretty well put together. A little bit of secret hunting, a little bit of combat, a little bit of platforming, with not much in the way of particular problems when it comes to like precision platforming or needing a very specific frame to hit a very specific dude or something like that. It's quite forgiving for the most part. But then you get into my problem with this section, and that's the difficulties that you have available to you. The game's got 3 difficulties, which is easy, medium, and hard. I started out on hard, and I think hard is too hard. At least personally. everything feels like it takes 2 or 3 hits more than it should to die. The bosses are overly long because you'll have well figured out the pattern by the time you're able to survive long enough to get a few patterns in without dying. Because enemies also do a fuck ton of damage to you on hard mode. It seems like your health is permanently capped at 3 or 4 hits before you die, no matter what, in hard mode. So it really is just, everything takes less and you take more, the game. It's not a very creative way to do difficulty. So I turned the difficulty down to normal, because I was kind of sick of having to do every stage practically perfectly, and it really doesn't help that there are lives. On hard, you only get 3 lives, and if you lose all of them, while it isn't a get kicked back out to the title screen, you lose everything before your last save. This game does have an autosave, by the way, it just doesn't tell you about it. But it does have a medium difficulty. I turned it down to the medium difficulty, and the medium difficulty is too easy. I don't even want to know how easy the easy difficulty is, because medium difficulty, which is what you're seeing right now, is practically brain dead. You've got more than enough health to survive the journey in unless you're brain dead. You've got tons of attack power to the point where most monsters can fall over just by spamming your entire magic meter at them, including the bosses, which is something I take advantage of quite a lot in this. And you get 5 lives, but the moment I turn the difficulty down to normal, I never used a life. So my suggestion would have been, have an in-between between normal and hard, which has a little bit more damage to you, and then they need a little bit more damage to get killed. Just a little. 1 hit, maybe 2, depending on the kind of monster. And make it so that you can take 1 or 2 less hits. I feel like that would have been the perfect normal balance. I imagine that the hard difficulty is what the original SNES version was about. That was the difficulty that game was at. So I can see why it's still there. I just don't think it's a very good difficulty. I think there's a better balance to be found between normal and hard. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy the platforming. Again, you've got a fair amount of moves, and the enemies that you need to fight are interesting. You never feel like a game of Castlevania, where something's arbitrarily been placed to make it an absolute pain in the ass to get to, because you can always think it through, whether it be relying on enemy timing, or one of the special moves that you've got available to you. I also forgot to mention the lunge, but I never use the lunge, which is, on your 3rd attack, hold forward, press the square button, you'll lunge forward, it actually makes you temporarily invincible, which can be quite useful, but again, I've just never found a use for it. Because you do have to put yourself in the way of enemies in order to make it happen, and Mercy Invincibility doesn't give you enough time to get out of the hitbox of the enemy. So, yeah, thrusting forward and hitting them when you don't have a way to get back, not great. Not great. But it's still enjoyable enough. Again, just, if you're the sort of person who wants a little bit of difficulty, but not too much like me, you might find this to be a bit of a snore fest. Especially when you can just spam magic at the boss of the stage and just get away with it without even trying, really. It's still fun, though. And I guess that's the nice thing about it. And again, I don't think it looks very bad at all. Sure, the resolution's a bit low, the animation can be a little bit janky. But there are some really good graphics in there. The effects, the skyboxes, and hell, the animations, at least some of them anyway, still look really good. So, overall, I do like ActRaiser. The town building is fun. The platforming combat is solid. And having to defend that town and watch it grow from a singular temple to a bunch of buildings with a bunch of roads and all of that other stuff is the most satisfying part of the game. But I wish there was an in-between on the difficulty. I wish there was a way to speed up the town building bits of the town building. And yeah, some smoother animations, less pixelated ones, probably wouldn't go amiss. But I do like the game. And I'm happy to say it's a recommend, but not a massive one. Just, if it goes on sale at any point, give it a look. It's probably worth your time. For the quality of the writing, the great soundtrack, the great town building and town defending gameplay, which is let down a bit by its pacing, and the solid, but again also slightly let down by its difficulty balancing, platforming gameplay. Although if you want a bit more of the platforming gameplay and less of the town building gameplay, sorry Buster, you'll have to go somewhere else. This has been Blue Maxima. I'm going to let you listen to the fantastic soundtrack for a bit longer. I'll see you all next time.